At midnight on Friday, April 18, 2026, fireworks lit up the sky over Beirut. Celebratory gunfire rang out across the Lebanese capital. Families who had been displaced from their homes in the south began moving toward southern Lebanon, despite warnings from officials to wait. A 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon had taken effect. After 6 weeks of renewed fighting between Israel and the Iranian-backed Hezbollah militant group, after more than 2,000 people killed in Lebanon, after more than 1 million displaced from their homes, after weeks of missile exchanges, Israeli ground operations, and Hezbollah rocket barrages, the guns had stopped, or so the announcement said. Within hours of the ceasefire taking effect, Lebanon's army accused Israel of committing acts of aggression in violation of the agreement. Israeli artillery was heard in the south of the country approximately 30 minutes after the ceasefire began. Israeli military spokesman Avichai Adrai said Israeli troops would remain positioned in southern Lebanon in the face of what he described as Hezbollah's ongoing terrorist activities. The IDF issued a warning to Lebanese civilians. Until further notice, do not move south of the Litani River. Let that land. Israeli forces were in Lebanon south of the Litani River. The ceasefire had just taken effect, and Israeli forces were staying where they were. This is Terra Break. And today we are going to explain exactly what the Lebanon ceasefire actually says, why it is fraught with contradictions that could collapse it within days, what Israel wants, what Hezbollah wants, what the Lebanese government is trying to manage, and why the resolution of the Lebanon question is directly connected to whether the broader Iran war ends or escalates. Because the Lebanon ceasefire is not a peripheral story. It is the story inside the story. It is the reason the Iran ceasefire nearly collapsed 3 times in its first 8 days. It is the reason Iran's foreign minister can announce Hormuz is open one day and threaten to close it again the next. And it is the reason that everything that appears to be heading toward resolution is simultaneously one Israeli airstrike or one Hezbollah rocket from falling apart entirely. Let's start with what actually happened on April 17th that produced this ceasefire. According to senior U.S. administration officials, Vice President J.D. Vance played a central role in brokering the Lebanon deal. Vance pushed the Israelis for days to be more careful in Lebanon, a senior official told CNN, adding that Vance believed an end to the loss of life in Lebanon could calm regional tensions and help advance the broader Iran negotiations. Trump announced the 10-day truce and said the leaders of both Israel and Lebanon could meet at the White House as early as this weekend. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu publicly endorsed the ceasefire. Former Israeli diplomat Alon Pinkas told Al Jazeera bluntly, Netanyahu was coerced into this by President Trump. This is not a ceasefire that he wanted. Pinkas also said Netanyahu failed in his stated objective of disarming Hezbollah. That statement gets to the heart of why this ceasefire is fragile. Netanyahu went into the Lebanon conflict with a stated military objective: the disarmament of Hezbollah and the creation of security conditions that would allow the approximately 96,000 Israelis displaced from northern Israel to return to their homes. He has not achieved this objective. Hezbollah is damaged. Its leadership has been decimated. Its missile stockpile has been partially destroyed. Significant portions of its military infrastructure in southern Lebanon have been dismantled. But it is not disarmed. It remains, as the same former Israeli diplomat said, one of the largest military forces in the Middle East. Israel's position entering the ceasefire is that it will honor the truce while retaining the right to act in self-defense at any time. The U.S. State Department statement on the ceasefire agreement said Israel will preserve its right to take all necessary measures in self-defense while not carrying out offensive military operations. The statement added that this right cannot be impeded by the cessation of hostilities. In practice, this means Israel is saying, we will not initiate offensive operations, but we define what constitutes self-defense, and we can act on that definition at any time. This is the same formula that has produced hundreds of ceasefire violations in Lebanon since the 2024 ceasefire agreement. Israel was accused of at least 2,036 violations of that agreement before fighting fully resumed. The pattern is established. Hezbollah's response to the ceasefire was notably guarded. Ali Fayyad, a Hezbollah politician, told Al Jazeera that the group would approach the ceasefire with caution and vigilance, and that any targeting of Lebanese sites by Israeli forces would constitute a breach. He said the next phase is thorny and fraught with pitfalls and challenges. Hezbollah released a lengthy statement detailing its military operations against Israel throughout Thursday, as if documenting its record of resistance before agreeing to pause. Its last attack came at 11:50 p.m. local time, 10 minutes before the ceasefire took effect. Hezbollah did not directly say whether it would honor the deal. Hezbollah's central demand is one that Israel has explicitly refused: withdrawal of Israeli troops from Lebanese territory. Israeli forces remain in southern Lebanon. Netanyahu said Israel agreed to the temporary ceasefire, but forces would remain in Lebanon with an extensive security zone up to the Syrian border. This is not a small buffer strip. This is a significant territorial presence inside Lebanese sovereign territory that Israel intends to maintain indefinitely as part of any security arrangement. Hezbollah says it will not disarm as long as Israeli forces remain on Lebanese soil. Israel says it will not withdraw until Hezbollah disarms. These two positions are not compatible with each other. Netanyahu has said his government now has the opportunity to make a historic deal with Beirut. He said Israel would pursue what he described as a long-term peace agreement with Lebanon that includes the demilitarization of Hezbollah. Lebanon's government has taken a step that no previous Lebanese government has taken. It criminalized Hezbollah's military wing for the first time ever. But controlling one of the largest militaries in the Middle East through Lebanese state action alone is, as one analyst told CBC, a task that would require a combined effort by the international community. Meanwhile, Trump posted on Truth Social that Israel is prohibited from bombing Lebanon. That instruction from an American president to an ally is remarkable in its directness. It also reflects the reality that every Israeli strike in Lebanon during the past 10 days has threatened to blow up the Iran negotiations. Iran's position throughout the ceasefire period was that any deal must address Lebanon. When Israel struck more than 100 targets in Lebanon in a single day on April 8th, just hours after the Iran ceasefire was announced, Iran paused Hormuz traffic in response. The connection between Lebanese stability and the Hormuz crisis is not metaphorical. It is operational and direct. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen described the Lebanon ceasefire as a relief. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand welcomed it and called on Hezbollah to disarm and for Lebanon's sovereignty to be respected. The leaders of Britain and France scheduled a virtual meeting for Friday to discuss efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, explicitly linking the Lebanon situation to the broader energy crisis resolution. What are the realistic scenarios for this 10-day ceasefire? Scenario 1. The ceasefire holds for 10 days. Iran and the US make enough progress in their negotiations that the Lebanon ceasefire is extended as part of a broader framework, and the path to a comprehensive settlement opens. This is the optimistic scenario, and it is the one that markets and diplomats are hoping for. It requires both Israeli restraint and Hezbollah restraint simultaneously for 10 days, something that has not been consistently achieved for more than a few days at a time since March 2026. Scenario 2. Israel conducts what it describes as a self-defense action in southern Lebanon within the ceasefire period, targeting a Hezbollah weapons transfer, striking a command position, eliminating a commander. Hezbollah responds with rockets. Iran uses this as a pretext to pause or reverse its Hormuz opening. The Iran negotiations stall or collapse. This is the scenario that nearly materialized multiple times in the first 8 days of the Iran ceasefire, and it remains the most likely single failure mode. Scenario 3. The ceasefire holds for 10 days and transitions into extended negotiations for a longer-term arrangement. Netanyahu meets with Lebanese officials, potentially at the White House. Talks begin about a framework that includes Israeli withdrawal from some parts of southern Lebanon in exchange for Lebanese government control over Hezbollah's weapons in those areas. This scenario is aspirational, but not impossible. Lebanon's criminalization of Hezbollah's military wing signals that the Lebanese government is willing to take political risks to achieve stability. The core tension that makes all three scenarios unstable is the same one that has defined Lebanon's political landscape for decades. Hezbollah is simultaneously a political party, a social services organization, and a military force with more weapons than the Lebanese National Army. It has domestic political legitimacy among a substantial portion of Lebanon's Shia population. It derives its regional purpose from its role as part of Iran's axis of resistance, and it has survived repeated Israeli military campaigns, including the most intensive one since 2006. Each time Hezbollah has been pressured militarily, it has reconstituted itself. Each time it has been pressured politically, it has found ways to maintain its weapons. The question that Netanyahu's historic deal framing raises, but does not answer, is what Israel is prepared to offer Lebanon in exchange for Hezbollah's disarmament. Because Hezbollah will not disarm at Israeli request, it might disarm as part of a comprehensive political arrangement that provides Lebanon with security guarantees, economic support, and a framework for genuine sovereignty. That kind of arrangement requires American investment, international financial support, and a political process that includes all of Lebanon's communities. It cannot be imposed from the outside by military pressure alone. The ceasefire that went into effect at midnight on April 18th is real. The fireworks over Beirut were real. The relief felt by the more than 1 million displaced Lebanese who can begin to think about returning home is real and profound. But the structural conditions that produced this war, Hezbollah's weapons, Israel's security demands, Lebanon's weak state, Iran's axis of resistance, are all still in place. The guns are quiet this morning. Whether they stay quiet depends on decisions being made right now in Jerusalem, in Beirut, in Tehran, and in Washington. 10 days. The ceasefire expires before the end of April. And it is only as durable as the weakest link in a chain that includes a determined militant organization, a prime minister who was coerced into the truce, a Lebanese government criminalizing the most powerful force in its own territory, and a US president who is simultaneously trying to close a nuclear deal with Iran. Drop your country below. Are you watching from Lebanon, Israel, or a country that has been affected by this conflict? And in our next video, we go deep on the single issue that will determine whether the Iran deal happens at all: the 400 kilograms of enriched uranium that nobody can agree on how to move. This is Terror Break.